Hello, so welcome to another reading vlog. This week we're halfway through April and I am trying to continue my reading prompts for the Magical Readathon and just trying to read some books that I will love. So let's see how we go with this week's reading. The main thing I want to be reading is Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan. So this is the first book in the, I always forget the name of the series, The Legends of the First Empire. So kind of a new series for me, but it is also kind of a continuation from the Rhyria Chronicles, although that's kind of chronologically in the future. From this series, this is kind of like the history of the world, and I have actually already read the introduction from the author, so it starts with an author's note. I already read that, and he says you can either start with the Rhyria Chronicles or you can start here. I did pick up the series at the moment because Joshana's doing a read-along type thing, and she started chronologically, so she started here. I started in publication date, although I think I've skipped what's called the Rhyria. Oh, are they the Rhyria Chronicles? And I started with the Rhyria Revelations. Anyway, whatever. I've heard that the ones I skipped aren't really necessary to the plot, and I just want to get to these ones. My understanding of it is that it's kind of a story where humanity has seen elves as like gods, and then they kill one and discover that they're not, and everything kind of goes sideways from there. I don't really know, but I'm going to read this week. I probably, even though I have this from the library, which is why it's so shiny, I actually also have it on my Kobo from the library, and I'm probably going to read my Kobo version, because I think I actually like reading on my Kobo better than I like reading physical books, or at least in terms of library books, because this way I can make notes and keep them. This, I can't annotate the book because I'm returning it. Also, I like that this has a time countdown because I want to get through this week, right? And it's telling me 10 hours to go. So that means I need to be reading like an hour and a half a day. Can I do it? I guess we'll see. Then as well, the audiobook I'm reading at the moment, I'm actually already about halfway through it, and that's The Wrong Woman by J.P. Pomare. This is a New Zealand author, although he lives in Australia now. And I think this is actually a release from a few years ago. I can see the library stamped it 2022. Published in 2022. Okay. So a few years old now. To be honest, it's a little bit more domestic than I prefer in my thrillers. I honestly find it hard to find thrillers I like, but I have liked a lot by J.P. Pomare. I really liked the one I read last year, 17 Years Later, especially the way it came together in the end. So this I am definitely paying a lot of attention to all the details, trying to see how it's all going to come together, because I'm sure it is. Basically, we're following this insurance investigator who's investigating this car crash where the husband died and the woman ended up in a coma. And while he's there, so he's actually come to investigate this, and it's in his hometown, which he was run out of for some reason that we haven't learned about yet. But he's come back because he was offered a lot of money for this insurance investigation, and he really needed that. As well, though, there has been a young girl or a young woman recently go missing in the town, and there has been some cases of women going missing in the past. So he's kind of investigating that as well, especially because I think he kind of knew one of these young girls. We are also getting the perspective of the woman who's in a coma from the car crash. And that's the bit that's like really typical domestic thriller, because he was her professor and then they got together and he divorced his wife and blah, blah, blah. Now maybe he's having an affair again. Honestly, I'm so bored with that. Even though I kind of like the main character, but the plot is just tedious and tiring. I'm so tired by terrible men. Like, anyway, I'm already about halfway through this audiobook, so I should also have time for another audiobook this week. I kind of want to try and fit in The River Has Roots, which I'm going to immersion read, like read it at the same time as listen to the audiobook. But when I say I should have more time for audiobooks, probably not immersion reading time, so we'll see if I can fit in that. What I actually mean is like housework or running time. So if I get more time for that, I'll pick up The Shadowed Sun by N.K. Jemisin. And I'll tell you more about that if I do actually pick it up in this vlog. I am hoping that I can get to all of these this week, because I'm also trying to read all of these for the Magical Readathon, which I'll link down below if you haven't heard about it. But each of these fulfills a prompt for that. And last week I fulfilled 2 prompts this would be another 4, and then I would still have another 4 to go. And it's already halfway through the month, so it'll be a nice little challenge, I think, to try and get through all of these. Okay, so I have finished the audiobook of The Wrong Woman. I finished it, well, I almost finished it on my run this morning, and then I had like 20 minutes left, so I've just finished that. And I do think the ending of this brought everything together. Like, there are a couple of little things I'd forgotten from the very beginning that then came back and were important, and just like the way that all the little pieces fell into place and like kind of meant you got a whole bunch of reveals in a row at the end was very well done. But I think I just didn't like the whole focus being about this woman and her awful husband who has a thing with a younger woman. Like, I didn't enjoy reading about that part of the story at all. And even though we had the other guy, the insurance investigator, most of the time he was just investigating that and learning about the horrible details there. So that wasn't that enjoyable either. I also think, like, I would have expected at the very end for the two main characters' perspectives to come together a lot more than they did. Like, a lot of the things that they had both learnt did play into each other's stories, but I kind of thought they would like have an intense bit at the end. But even though they did have kind of an intense thrillery part at the end, they weren't together when it happened. They were kind of dealing with different issues. So even though everything came together at the end, something about that made it feel less cohesive. I also realised that a lot of the books by J.P. Pomare that I've really loved are the ones with like a New Zealand element. And I'm pretty sure actually all the audiobooks I've listened to by him previously have had like Australian audiobook narrators, which isn't New Zealand. Like, it's been Australian audiobook narrators even when it's been New Zealand characters set in New Zealand, but whatever. Like, Australia is close. This, though, was set in America, and the audiobook narrators were American, and that also made it a little bit more boring and generic to me. Like, I guess the thing is, I think this was really good. I did have a good time reading it, but it wasn't my favorite of his books, and it was missing a few of the things that have particularly made me like his stuff before. So I am definitely going to pick up more by him, but this one, like, I liked it, but not my favorite. So next, I will probably pick up The Shadowed Sun by N.K. Jemisin. So this is the second book and the last book, because it's just a duology, the Dreamblood duology. So this is set in a world where there's this city of dreams where basically when people are very old, these priests will come to them and like put them to sleep and take their dream blood. And I think there's other situations where these priests or these other related people can take people's dream blood, and then that later can be used for different kinds of magic, like healing people and such. But as well, the priesthood will also basically kill people who it deems are corrupt or like not really worth keeping in the world, and use them for dream blood as well. And in the first book, we kind of discovered quite a big corruption within the priesthood. I'm just looking at the synopsis of the second book for the first time. It seems like maybe the City of Dreams has now been taken over by the neighboring kingdom, which was kind of hinted at the end of the first book. And maybe also now people are starting to have dreams that make them die, dooming the infected to die screaming in their sleep. That sounds awful. So next time I go for a run, I will pick this up, but it probably won't be for a couple of days. We'll see. The other thing I've been reading is Age of Myth, but as I said before, I have been reading it on my Kobo. I'm actually 25% of the way through already. I think it's about a day and a half since I started this blog. So I think it's saying I've got about 6.5 hours left to go. So like I still need to read slightly over an hour a day, but it's come down from the estimate I had when I started, which makes me feel like I'm making good progress. We'll see. Every time I kind of get ahead of my reading plans or like manage to have a day where I read more than normal, I think I've cracked it. I've figured out how to like fit reading into my life, and I'm going to get so much read, and then life happens and I don't read as much as I was hoping, is usually how it happens, but we'll see how the rest of this week goes. Anyway, Age of Myth So we mainly start out with kind of 3 main characters, or the first 2 are like pairs of characters, I guess. Firstly, we were introduced to this young man and his father who had gone across the river into the Elven lands, or the Fray they call them, but I think it's clear that they're elf-like. So this father and his son go over there thinking that they're allowed. This elf turns up and is like, nope, that's not allowed, and things kind of go badly, and we end up with this elf dying. And the young man is like completely not believing that this elf could possibly die, because the humans see the elves as like gods, and they're like, well, they can't die. So he's like waiting for this elf to come back to life, because he's like, he's going to come back to life. How long is it going to take? And then the other guy that ends up on the run with him is the servant of the elf, and he's like, no, he's dead. So then they are now off on the run in the forest, expecting the elves to come after them. And it's kind of funny because the young man is quite like superstitious. He has a lot of beliefs about spirits and all that kind of stuff. And the servant of the elves just thinks all of that is ridiculous, which maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's a little bit hard to tell in this world. Some of it probably is, and other bits I suspect might not be. But also this servant of the elves, or slave, I guess, it's not entirely clear, but he hasn't had a lot of experience in the human world, so there's lots of things that the other guy knows about that he doesn't know about, so they're kind of learning a lot from each other and misunderstanding each other a lot, and like both kind of thinking that the other is somewhat stupid. So I'm kind of enjoying traveling with them as they're on the run and just trying to find food a lot of the time. The servant is especially obsessed with food. Then we had this isolated village town. I don't think it's that big. We've got Persephone, who was the wife of the chieftain, and I think she's maybe like approaching 40-ish. So I like that she's an older woman. Also, this young girl has turned up who's got like tattoos on her face, and supposedly when she was young she was taken away by the Nog. So it seems like sometimes in the forest was Nog the place they take you, and they're called something else. I suspect they're like the dwarves of the world. They sometimes will like tempt people away and take them into their underground cities. And this young girl seems like she spent a long time there, but she's now come out, and she has some funny ideas. Like, she's telling this chieftain's wife, we need to go and talk to the trees about what's going to happen, because it's all going to be end of the world type stuff soon. And so Persephone has ended up kind of going with this young girl, Suri, into the forest to talk to this particular special tree. I'm thinking maybe it's the tree on the cover, and that's in the forest that the other guys are running away in. So I just got to where they kind of meet up. Then we also got this other elf lady. I think she's like 2,000 years old or something, because elves tend to live like 3,000 years. And we just kind of got her disagreeing with her mother and kind of learning about that relationship. And then also she's going to be taking over the training of the young prince, who is only like 25, which for an elf is like very young, practically an infant, and they're a little bit worried about how he's turning out. So we haven't met him yet, but I have my suspicions that he's going to be terrible. And perhaps, from everything I've heard about the series, unredeemable, but we will see. It is already 4 o'clock, but I will try and fit in reading some more of this tonight, I guess. It is getting quite wintry around here now, so it gets dark very early, which theoretically means more reading time. Theoretically.
Dancing to your beat, wanting to blend in, no self-expression, 'cause I wanted you to see I'm not so different.
Hello. So, same position, but it's a different day. I decided I'm going to try and bulk film some videos, so I don't usually do that, but let's see how it goes. And I thought while I'm at it, I'll update you, because I haven't managed to get halfway through Age of Myth, and I think it's telling me 4.2 hours to go. So I managed to get a decent amount through this last night. I will say, I feel like so far there hasn't been much progress in the plot. It's been mostly about world building and kind of getting to know the characters and a little bit of setup. I don't know, I guess the setup counts as plot, but for me, I still feel like we're kind of in setting up mode. And maybe because this is the first book in a longer series, this whole book will kind of be setting up mode. I am still enjoying it though. I think we just had a chapter with this like very powerful magical fae. I just realized, I feel really dumb, but I've just realized that when they're called the Frey, that's like just a little bit different from Fae. And the dwarf guys are called the Dargs or something. I'm sure that's not how you say it, which isn't really dwarf, but it's kind of close as well-ish. Anyway, I'm sure you're supposed to have seen comparisons between the names earlier than this, but I just suddenly got it. Anyway, we've been following this woman, this fae woman, elf woman, and she's very powerful magically, but it seems like she's lived her whole life kind of in this forest city and she's never seen the sky before. So now she's basically been sent to deal with this other elf that's just met up kind of with Persephone and Wraith, who was the one who killed the other elf. So he's gone a little bit rogue and this other powerful elf woman has been sent to deal with him, and she's never seen the sky before. So I kind of like how for each of our characters there's something they're very skilled in, and then there's other areas where they're really like lacking in knowledge. Maybe the only exception to that is Persephone, but in her case she's being introduced to this more mystical way of looking at things by Suri. And I'm also really loving Suri because she has like this pet white wolf, which I've realized I could see on the ebook cover. I can't quite see it on the library book cover because it's behind the sticker, so the sticker is ruining it. Ugh, stupid stickers. I really don't know why my library feels the need to put rental as a big sticker on the front. Anyway, I'm expecting that very soon all our main characters are going to be in one place, and maybe they're going to battle a bear, maybe. I guess we'll see. Even though it's quite slow, I am enjoying the journey, and I'm getting through it quite quickly, as I said, so I'm pretty happy with my progress there. And then the other thing I did do is the other night I picked up volume 2 of the Cursed Princess Club. So this is a reread for me, but it's also the book I had for the prompt, the astronomy prompt in the Magical Readathon, which was like a color wheel, and I got purple, and this is the book I picked. This series I've talked about a million times. We're basically following the 3 pastel princesses. I always want to try and find a picture of them and I never can. Anyway, the 3 pastel princesses, they're betrothed to the plaid princes, but then the youngest prince is a jerk and calls the youngest princess ugly because she's got green hair. And then it's just really wholesome. She ends up meeting the Cursed Princess Club, who are these amazing badass princesses that are cursed. This is a princess that's cursed to vomit frogs all the time. So that's not great. And as I said, this is a reread, so immediately as I go back into it, I'm just loving everything about it. I think for me, it's just the sense of humor is the perfect sense of humor for me. And it's also heartwarming and wholesome at the same time as just being quite hilarious. So this is just my fun on the side read. I'll pick this up whenever I feel like I have no brain for anything else. And I don't think much else has happened other than we're expecting a cyclone to hit soon. So maybe that means more reading time. So I just got back from a run. I was going to update you on the run, but instead it rained on me, so I didn't. But I've gotten home, gotten dry, washed my hair. Now I'm somewhat human again. While I was on that run though, I went on actually quite a long run, which was questionable decision making given how rainy it was. But anyway, while I was on the run, I did get a third of the way through the Shadowed Sun. Now the thing with this is, and it's the exact same experience that I had with the first book in the series, is that it's pretty much taken me that whole third to even really have a grasp of what's going on. And I would have thought the second book would be easier because I'd have some idea of what was going on in the world already. And actually maybe it was easier because I think it took me like halfway through to understand what was going on in the first book. So this one, maybe like a quarter of the way through, I got a grasp of things. Do I I'm still not sure if I'm entirely there. So it seems like this is set, I think I read somewhere, I don't know if it actually told me in the book. Anyway, it's set like 10 years later. And so while a couple of our characters from the first book are still around, we've also been introduced to some new characters. One of them who I feel like is the actual main character is this young woman that's been training as a healer who uses this dream blood, which I think in my description of the book before, I talked about it just coming from like the deaths of people. So they do get dream blood when people die because they basically deliver people into a dream when they die. But also they can get dream blood to use for magic just from people's dreams. But this girl is training to be what's known as a sharer, which is essentially a healer. So she uses that dream blood to heal people. But there's a bigger political thing going on where basically this other kingdom came and conquered them to some degree. And this healer has found herself kind of wrapped up in this scheme that one of our original characters, well, maybe both of our original characters, are kind of executing in order to like try and free their people from this neighboring kingdom. And there's also these more like warlike people out in some other neighboring areas that are getting involved. And for whatever reason, this healer has just, as I've gotten to like a third of the way through, had to go and spend some time with those people. But it's like a culture that she's really unsure of. And so a lot of the focus is about these different cultures like clashing against each other, which I think could be interesting. But because I'm just struggling with like remembering who's who, I'm not really getting the full effect. I will also say, I don't think I like the audiobook narrator. And I think I thought that for the first book as well, it was the same narrator. I just think something about the way she reads everything seems really flat. It's almost like she's reading it in like a poetry kind of way, but like a flat poetry way. I can't explain what I mean. So I do wonder if I would have enjoyed this more and been able to follow it better if I was reading it with my eyes. Definitely when I look at people's names, like with audiobooks, especially with these names, I think they're somewhat like Egyptian inspired. And I think if I was reading them, I'd remember them better. But hearing them, it's really hard. But I just don't have time to read this physically at the moment. So I'm just going to stick with the audiobook and we'll see whether I ever... we'll see if I like it enough to come back and read it with my eyes. I kind of don't think I will, because the other thing that's kind of going on is like this romancy element. Like it seems like certain characters are being set up to have a romance. I guess we'll see how that really plays out. The romance in the first book was a bit weird, so it might not play out how I'm expecting. Then I have also been making progress with Age of Myth, and I'm now 3/4 of the way through, I think. This is too shiny to hold up really in this lighting. I'm not going to. I'll put a picture here. Thanks, editing me. So I'm 75% of the way through and it is starting to get very exciting. I actually didn't really want to stop reading last night. I was reading in bed and I was really tired, but if I hadn't been, I would have kept reading because our characters have kind of just been put into a dangerous situation. Now, I'm not sure if I believe at this point in the series that any of our characters are actually in danger. I don't really think so, but things might still go badly in order to set up for the rest of the series. I guess we'll see. But I'm excited as well because we kind of have a little bit of a riddle that was given to us by a tree. And now it's quite fun like watching how that riddle is playing out. And it all feels very like classical fantasy, very satisfying. And I think even though in some ways it seems a little bit basic, I'm really liking the characters, and I feel like the ending's going to be very satisfying. I guess we'll see whether I'm right when I read it. Hello, so it's Sunday night now and I think I'm going to wrap this vlog up because I did finish off Age of Myth and maybe I could get back into doing my vlogs like strictly beginning of the week to end of the week? Probably not, because I always feel like I want to finish off the book to finish off the vlog, and then I always struggle to finish off the books. But anyway, I did finish off The Age of Myth. I really liked it. I thought it came together in a really satisfying way. It did still feel very set up, but some of the setup was pretty cool. Also, there was like mostly, I would say the story wraps up within the first book, like the story that's introduced here, but it does kind of like a hint of things to come and a hint of like some underlying things going on, which is very good setup for the rest of the series. And this is a 6-book series, so hopefully I will enjoy all of it. So far, it's a pretty good beginning. Although I will say, I feel like I've become quite attached to all the characters. So if anything bad happens to any of them, I kind of don't... do I think it will or do I think it won't? I kind of don't think so. But also, I'm trying to remember the details that are mentioned from history in the other series. You can't really trust any of that because so much time has passed that like history's been forgotten, and it's already clear that a lot of things from this time are like misremembered or misunderstood in the later time. So you can't really trust any of that, but there's still like a few hints of what went on. Anyway, I had a great time with that. I am also 40% of the way through The Shadowed Sun. I do feel like every time I'm confident that I know what's going on, something happens and I'm like, oh, is it? There was one character and I thought they were just being called different names in different contexts, and I hadn't quite worked out the context. No, different people. So that took me a while to work out. I definitely think it would have been easier if I was reading this, because when I went through this and I found a scene where both the names were being used, it was quite clearly 2 different people, not the same person. So probably I should have read this physically, and I actually think I could have read this audibly and still gotten it, because this is less complicated than this. But also, I'm not sure that The Shadowed Sun is the kind of story I love. We've now got this woman, this like healer woman, out in this like tribe where they run things very differently, and the main, I'm sure, is the love interest, is basically putting her in a position where someone's going to try and rape her, and I don't know, just the whole situation is gross and I don't enjoy reading it, and I don't even know that I feel like it's saying anything interesting with that. I don't know. Now that I'm talking about it, I'm thinking maybe I'm not enjoying this really, even though I felt like, because I was understanding it better, that I was enjoying it more. But when I think about the actual things that are happening, I don't know if I am liking this. But anyway, I will continue this in my next reading vlog, and I guess we'll see how I feel about it. I have also read a tiny bit more of the Cursed Princess Club, which of course I'm loving. I love my Cursed Princess girls, and just so many funny things have happened, but also so many like great lessons. It's my favorite. I do still have a lot of things that I was hoping to read for the Magical Readathon, and April is quickly disappearing, but whatever, I guess. Oh, I did also finish The Wrong Woman in this vlog, right? So at least I finished 2 things in this vlog. I didn't get to the audiobook of this, which I'm sad about, but maybe we'll find some time in the next vlog, which I'm about to start straight after this. So a moment for me, but a week for you until the next vlog, unless you're in the future, in which case you could jump straight to the next one. Who knows what's happening with you? Also, who knows what's happening with me? But anyway, let me know if you've read any of the books that I talked about in this video, because I would love to chat with you about them down in the comments. And let me know if you've been reading anything great lately. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.